Looking for a fun way to win up to 25 times your money this football season? Test your skills on Prize Picks, the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projection for a wide variety of statistics, and place your entry. It's as easy as that. If you have the skills, you can turn $10 into $250 with just a few taps. Easy gameplay, quick withdrawals, and an enormous selection of players and stat options are what make Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. Ready to test your skills? Join the Prize Picks community of more than 7 million football fans who have already signed up. Right now, Prize Picks will match your first deposit up to $100. Just visit prizepicks.com/get100 and use code GET100. That's code GET100 at prizepicks.com/get100 for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy.
You are listening to the Hiking Radio Network, where we talk the walk with shows by hikers, about hikers, for everybody.
I'm wondering if you'd go wandering with me through the wilderness and woods, where the winds are blowing free through the darkness of the night.
Welcome to the Jester Section Hiker Podcast, where we talk about the continual pursuit of the section hiker.
And I'll spread the word, and you beat the drum. We'll round up the troops and get the gang to come, and we'll leave the streets and these neighborhoods, head over the river and through the woods.
I am excited to announce that the podcast episodes that are specific to the Mountains to Sea Trail are now being sponsored by the MST Guide by Pocket Trails. The MST Guide is the most comprehensive app for maps and navigation developed for the Mountains to Sea Trail, providing unprecedented information and ease of access for day hikers, section hikers, and through hikers. Never get lost again. Updated maps with trail route changes and everything you need from parking areas, camping locations, water sources, and more. Available now for download through Google Play and coming soon for the iPhone. Check it out and download today. The MST Guide by Pocket Trails. Follow the lines in the palm of your hand. Welcome back to the podcast, everybody. You are listening to Jester Section Hiker, the premier podcast with the spotlight on section hikers. And I'm your host, Julie Jester Gayhart. This week, we continue our focus on the Mountains to Sea Trail, but this time we are going to be talking to a section hiker that has completed the trail. In fact, she is hiker number 96, which means she is only the 96th person to finish the trail. I think that's pretty cool to be the 96th person, just under that 100th person mark. Before we get to our guest today, I wanted to make sure all of you knew about our updated Hiking Radio Network website. We have a new look and an updated way for you to find all the podcast shows that belong to the network. If you go to hikingradionetwork.com, you will have access to all the shows, and if you click on your favorite show, you will see each show has its own individual site. You can subscribe to our shows so you never miss an episode, donate to your favorite show, leave reviews, and more. Thanks for coming back for another episode, and now on to the show. All right, guys, as we continue with this episode talking about what I'm going to call now the awesome Mountains to Sea Trail, it only seemed fitting that we have on a section hiker that has completed the trail. And I'm going to go ahead and add this part in too. So according to Kate Dixon, who you guys heard from a couple episodes ago, the executive director for the Friends of the Mountains to Sea Trail, this guest I'm getting ready to introduce you to would be the perfect section hiker to talk to. So without further ado, I introduce you to Mary Stewart, also known as Angel in the Mountains to Sea Trail community. Welcome to the podcast, Mary.
Hi, Julie. Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to talk to you about the Mountains to Sea Trail.
I got to tell the listeners right now, we have been laughing and cracking up even before we hit the record button. So we are going to have an awesome time. And I'd love to start off with your trail name, Angel, because I think I don't know, but I'm going to assume it has kind of two different meanings. So Mary, talk to us about that trail name.
So the whole time I was hiking the trail, I wanted a trail name, and I figured since I was doing the whole trail, it's okay for a section hiker to have one as well as a through hiker.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and say absolutely it's okay for a section hiker to have a trail name. Okay.
and you don't run into quite as many people on the Mountains to Sea Trail as you do on some of the larger trails. So I hadn't received a trail name. And when I was on segment 1, getting fairly close to finishing up near Water Rock Knob, 2 hikers were coming down, and I asked them if they were hiking the Mountains to Sea Trail, and they were like, yes. And I said, yay, I'm almost finished. And they wanted to stop and ask me some questions when I told them that I was section hiking, because they'd been having some difficulty with the weather and some foot issues and stuff like that. So we chatted a while about the differences between through hiking and section hiking, and then went on our way. And I had wished that I had given them my phone number, because I was going to be up that way a while to see if I could help them. Well, when I got back to Water Rock Knob to get my car from the car shuttle we had done, they were just coming down. So I ran up and said, hey, is there anything y'all need? And they actually needed a ride to Balsam, because they didn't have time to get there before the post office closed to pick up their mail drop. And so I gave them a ride, and they got settled in at the Balsam Inn. And Latte, who was the girl hiker, asked me if I had a trail name yet. And I told her no, but I really wanted one. So she said she was going to name me Angel, because I had been their angel that day. So I said, I like that.
That is awesome. And yes, and see, the trail provided for them and the trail provided for you because you wanted a trail name. So there you go. And there are 2 parts to this that we're going to get into a little bit later, because that trail name has now come full circle, because you also do some trail angeling for the Mountains to Sea Trail, but we'll get into that here in a little bit. So let's start off by just talking about your interest in the Mountains to Sea Trail and maybe where you live in North Carolina.
I live in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, and had always sort of wanted to do a long trail, and started hearing more about the Mountains to Sea Trail, and had joined a hiking group in Chapel Hill, and met another lady that was interested in doing with me when she heard me talking about it. We had actually done the river walk section before I met her, which is part of the Mountains to Sea Trail. So that was my actual first hike on it. So we connected and decided that we were going to hike the whole trail, and just took off and did it.
And went from there. And what year was that you decided to do this?
So I started in June of 2016, and it took me 2 years to do it.
So you finished in 2018, and I'm going to get to that date here in a little bit, because I mentioned your date in Kate Dixon's episode and kind of gave a little spoiler of why your ending date was very special to you. So, and we will get to that here in a second. You mentioned there are different segments of the Mountains to Sea Trail, and over the last couple episodes, we have talked about those segments, but just remind us again, how many segments of the Mountains to Sea Trail are there?
There are 18. It starts at Clingman's Dome at the Tennessee border and goes to Jockey's Ridge.
Which is absolutely phenomenal. And when you started this, because sometimes I think it's confusing for people, because I section hike myself, and sometimes it's hard for me to keep up what sections of trails that I've done, because a lot of times we don't start in order and we don't end in order. So when you said, hey, listen, 2016, I'm going to start this section hike, did you decide you were going to go from point A to B? What was your strategy in starting to section hike the trail?
We're not going to go from point A to point B. So our goal, I was working full time when I started, and my hiking partner was married. And so we had to sort of connect on when we could hike. So the first year we sort of did hit and miss, because it was better for her to hike on the weekends, which is when I worked. So we decided to start in the Piedmont first, and we did the sections near us at Eno River and Falls Lake, and sort of spread out in a 2-mile radius. I mean, sorry, not 2 mile, 2 hour driving radius was our limit on how far we would drive for a day hike. And then after that, we started staying out for like a few days, and we would either stay at a hotel or set up camp in people's yards, trail angels that would let us stay in their yards. So when we very first started, we did about, I think, 3 or 4 hikes in the Piedmont, and we're just itching to get to the mountains. So we took off and did from Pisgah Inn to Folk Art Center just to get some mountain time in, and then bounce back down. So there was really no rhyme or reason to our plan of how we were hiking. We just did what we could do when we had the time.
And you just went for it. So just so everybody, just to remind everybody as well, the Mountains to Sea Trail, as we stated before, goes across east to west or west to east the entire state of North Carolina, and it's broken down into 3 segments. So you've got the mountain segment, you've got the Piedmont, and then, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's the coastal plain, and Chapel Hill, where you live, is kind of in the Piedmont area.
It is.
So and that would make sense that you would start closer to home and things like that. And then trying to navigate and work out with a hiking partner, who works on weekends or you work on weekends and she works during the week. So did you find it better to kind of hike during the middle of the week kind of deal, or did that kind of come later?
So that was the best for me with my work schedule, and also less crowded as far as running into just people out for the day. And then after the first year of hiking, I decided I wanted to be able to hike more than we were. So I cut back at work, which opened up our time frame. So I could pick my days at work that I wanted to do around her schedule when she would be able to go out.
When you say you cut back at work, was that purposeful to hiking? And then people at work say, oh my God, we're sick of hearing about the Mountains to Sea Trail, or because I know people I work with, they're like, please don't mention hiking. People at work, we call each other by our last names because I'm a teacher. They're like, please don't mention hiking today, Hart. We're going to hear all about this. So how was that cutting back at work and stuff? Because I know it's scary for a lot of people to do that so they can hike.
No, it was for hiking, and it wasn't scary. It just felt like the right thing to do. And I think there probably were 1 or 2 people at work that got tired of hearing about it, but the majority of people, really, enjoy it and, want to know sections of the trail that would be good for hiking, good for them to take their kids on. I've had lots of people come and hike with me.
And that is awesome. That is awesome. So you are literally fulfilling your dream of section hiking this trail and completing the trail. So you start off in the Piedmont area, you step back a little bit at work, and you also made another decision that you and I talked about previously, because the Mountains to Sea Trail, you can walk, you can paddle, you can ride your bike, and you made the decision that you wanted to complete this thing all by foot. So talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, when my hiking partner's name was Jane, and when we started, we just decided that we were going to do the whole thing on foot. We had talked about biking a little bit, but we just decided we were going to do it all on foot. We wanted to see the whole state that way. And since I finished the trail, have gone back and done some of the paddle sections. And since COVID has hit, I've been enjoying the day hike book that Jim Grody wrote, and some of the road sections on that we hiked, I'm now doing on bike.
So let's talk about those road sections for a little bit, because I think road scares a lot of people. And I've talked about this before on the podcast. I think people see a trail and they see, oh, it has several 100 miles of road, and that is almost a deterrent. So talk us out of that, Mary. How are those road sections, and what is special about going on the road for the Mountains to Sea Trail?
There were probably really only 2 road sections that were not great, and that's because they were really on the side of the highway. But a lot of the road sections that you walk on are backcountry roads, And it's really great. Half the time you have the highway or the road to yourself, lots of farmland. You see the farmers out on their tractors. Segment 8, you walk right past Priddy's General Store, which is a treat.
What's the name of the store?
Priddy's General Store. It's been in there.
Can you give us a little sneak peek about this general store?
Yeah, it's sort of famous on the Mountains to Sea Trail, and it's been in their family for, I think, 3 generations. And it's just an old general store that has, Jiffy Pop popcorn in there, and
oh yeah,
old-fashioned lemon drops. And the owner's name is Jane, and she's just wonderful. They love hikers as well, and oftentimes they'll, give them a cool drink or some ice cream. So it's just a great place to stop.
That is awesome. And that is in what section again? I want everybody to write this down so you don't forget.
Segment 8.
Or segment 8. Yeah. I got to remember to call them segments, Mary. I'm trying to get with it on the Mountains to Sea Trail. So
it's all
right. So before we go forward, let's back up a little bit, because oftentimes I do get a lot of questions about section hiking and how people go about this. So I just want to make sure that everybody understands, you can section hike big sections with your backpack on. That is not a problem. You can take on the whole thing by foot. But you also mentioned a little bit earlier that you guys did like car shuttles. I know you told me before you also stayed at campgrounds. So would you guys try to base camp kind of thing? Did you do some key swapping? How did that work?
So most of the time we took 2 vehicles and we would, shuttle them and park one where we were going to be finishing and then drive back to the start and then hike between the 2 cars. Occasionally we would have one of the trail angels help us so that we would only have to take 1 vehicle down for the day. And we did. So when we were in the mountain part and we were going for more than a day and we were staying 2 or 3 nights, we mostly stayed in hotels up there.
Okay.
But when we got down to the coastal part, we were staying out longer. We were doing, 5 days of hiking and then coming home for a few days and then going back out. So we set up a base camp in a trail angel's yard or at a campsite, and still did the car shuttles. And so really the whole trail, you can do car shuttling, except for the last section in the mountains where you go from Mingus Mill to Clingman's Dome. You really have to backpack that unless you are an ultra marathoner.
Okay, so that last little section, or it might be somebody's first section,
right?
If they actually start at Clingman's Dome, which is in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. How many miles is that section from Clingman's to, I guess, Mingus Mill without a road intersecting there? I think it's over 20 something miles. Is that correct?
It's over 20 miles. I don't have that figure in my head.
Because I've actually looked at that, Mary, because I'm crazy.
Yeah.
Because, now in my mind, I'm going to section hike the Mountains of Sea Trail. It's absolutely ridiculous that I live in the state of North Carolina and have not completed that trail. So over these last 3 episodes, I'm like, all right, Jester, get your act together. It's time to complete this trail. So, and I'll thank you for that, Jim and Kate for that, because this trail, I did not realize how phenomenal this trail is. And I do have a couple questions for you regarding how phenomenal it is. So let's do this. Tell us in each of the 3 areas, let's start with the mountains. What was your favorite part? Describe to the listeners what they can't miss in the mountain section.
When people ask me what my favorite section of the trail is, I have such a hard time answering that because every segment just has something wonderful. And when I start out, I'll say, well, I really liked segment 5 of the mountains. It was fabulous. But then so were the rest of them.
I know, I do that too. And then you go hiking. You're like, oh my God, there is nothing better than that. And then you go out on another section and you're like, oh my God, nothing was better than that. So does anything stick out, like a favorite mountaintop?
I would really like to go back to Klingman's Dome because when I got there, it was all socked in. So I didn't even climb up to the observation tower. And there's supposed to be a beautiful view there. But let's see.
What about in the Piedmont, in your zone, so to speak?
In the Piedmont, I would have to say probably my favorite would be Pilot Mountain to Hanging Rock. But then the town of Elkin is just fantastic. It's just an amazing trail town, and the people there really love hikers, and they have sort of made their whole town around the hiking community. So Elkin you have to visit Elkin, and they have all kinds of great.
See, Mary, you're making me sad again because literally, I'm not kidding. I am an hour and 15 minutes from Elkin.
I'm 2 hours.
I've not been there. I mean, I don't know what my problem is, Mary. Come on.
I'm only 2 hours from Elkin, and I drive up there frequently just to hang out up there.
All right. And then let's get out to the coast. A favorite area besides, or it might be Jockey's Ridge on the coast.
Yeah. The beach was great. I'm a beach person as well as a mountain person. So that was really fun to be down there and hiking on the beach. The one thing about the beach hiking, I will say, since we're talking about that you need to know when you're planning your hikes is you have to look at the tide tables.
Oh, yeah.
And make sure you go at low tide because some of the areas, especially in Hatteras, there's no beach if it's high tide, and you end up having to walk on Highway 12 instead of on the beach.
Well, that's good to know because certainly I would get there at high tide and be like, do I need to swim at this point or what's And if you could walk on the beach, I mean, I would say that most people prefer to do that than to walk on the road.
Yes, absolutely. So,
I have another question too about that. How many ferries do you actually end up taking?
Well, you actually end up taking two. You take the one from Cedar Island Refuge to Ocracoke. And then I think it's a 14-mile hike from end to end at Ocracoke on the beach. And then you take the one at the other end to Hatteras.
Perfect. So now that we've talked about your favorite points on each one, we've got to get to this point that we alluded to earlier. Now, we know your section hike was not, purposeful. I must do this. I must do this. But there was one thing that you set in your mind that you must do, and that was where you were going to end and the date you were going to end. So talk to us about why you made that a special point for your completing the Mountains to Sea Trail.
Well, when we started, we had given ourselves a 2-year time frame to finish the trail. And so we had decided to go ahead and do the whole coastal plain during the spring and early summer to knock that out. And I've been to Jockey's Ridge just umpteen times. So we finished that. And then I decided that I was going to finish the trail at either one end or the other. I was going to either summit Jockey's Ridge or summit Klingman's Dome. So that was the option left, was to do Klingman's Dome. And it worked out that it looked like I was going to finish in September. So I set my date to finish on September 9th, which is the actual birthday of the Mountains to Sea Trail. And that was the backpacking trip from Mingus Mill up there. So we did 2 nights of backpacking and then took a night off the trail and went into Cherokee. And I had a giant birthday cake made up with Happy Birthday Mountains to Sea made on it. And we went back the last day and did the 3.5-4 miles from Fork Ridge Road up to Klingman's Dome with car shuttles. So when I got to the parking lot after the end of the hike, I just opened the back of my car and started shouting out to people, "It's the Mountains to Sea Trail birthday. Come have some cake." And at first people looked at me like I was crazy, but then when they started seeing that I was really giving away cake, people really started getting interested and coming over and wanting to know about the trail. And So,
and listen, people, I got a picture of that cake, and it is phenomenal. I mean, it is, and I'm actually going to put that in the show notes because I think that's awesome. One thing that I get from this is you wanted to have that special date on the Mountains to Sea Trail birthday, but you also wanted to share the birthday, the cake, and your accomplishment. I mean, I just think that's phenomenal.
Thank you.
And Clingman's Dome, for those that have not been up to, it's actually the highest point, I think, on the Mountains to Sea Trail and the highest point on the Appalachian Trail. And going to Clingman's Dome can almost be like going to the wide world of Disney. So it's very it's very easy to drive there. And then there's like a mile hike on pavement to the top of the fire tower that you were talking about that was all socked in. So it can be really, really crowded up there. And when you pop off the trail, whether you're on the AT, the AT and the Mountains of Sea Trail coincides right there. It's almost like it's shock. You're in shock of all the people, that are up there. So
there were a lot of people. and some of the people that I met when I was going up that were coming down were either starting their Mountains to Sea Trail hike or they were on an Appalachian Trail hike. So
that is awesome. That is phenomenal. So thank you for sharing several points of your journey. And I know your journey is continuing on the Mountains of Sea Trail because you love it so much. But I kind of want to move over to this Trail Angel network and what I'm going to call phenomenon of the Mountains of Sea Trail, because what I'm learning is the Trail Angel network, including yourself, because you are a trail angel, which coincides with your trail name. So first of all, talk to us about this network and then talk to us about why it was important for you to get involved as a trail angel for the MST.
Well, we had so many people help us while we were hiking, and I just was really intrigued by what they were doing and said, I want to do that. So it was, so I called up Kate and asked her to put me in the guidebook to help. And I guess
well, let's tell people, how far are you from putting your foot on the trail from your house?
I'm probably about a 30-minute drive either way to segment 10 or segment 9. And I trail angel for both of those sections.
So you trail angel for segment 10 and segment 9. So is this a way for you? Do you see this as a service to the trail, giving back to the trail? And I could also almost see it being selfish too. And what I mean, and I mean that in a great way, is because you also get satisfaction with helping people.
Yeah, it is definitely a way to give back to the trail. Trail crew are my heroes, the ones that go out and do the trail maintenance, but that's just not my forte. So it's a great way for me to give back to the trail. And I can definitely see how you would say it was selfish, because it is very satisfying and you meet so many wonderful people and to share stories.
So how many hikers do you think you've been an angel to?
Wow, let's see, probably 12 MST hikers, maybe a little bit more than that. And then I've also done some trail angling on the AT as well. So, but the majority of people that I've trail angeled for, we're all just great friends now, hang out and hike together. And
that is awesome. And part your trail name too is when you put your name in the, basically you're on the Mountains of Sea Trail website that you can be contacted as a trail angel. You know that people are with the Mountains of Sea because they call you Angel. So talk about why that's important.
Yeah, I had originally, when I had my name put in the guidebook, just had Mary put in there. But you know how when your phone rings and somebody says, "Is this Mary?" Yeah. Who is this? I didn't want to be like that when they called. So I asked them to switch me in the guidebook to my trail name. So if somebody calls and says, "This is Angel," I can be like, "Yeah, how are you doing? Yeah, hiking the Mountains to Sea Trail."
So what is your service? Do you shuttle more than anything, or what will you provide for MST hikers?
Basically, whatever they need. If they need a shuttle, I will do that. If they want a 0 day, I'll bring them to my house so that they can have a night off the trail, feed them, let them use my washing machine if they want to wash clothes.
I mean, I'm just sitting here in amazement. Like, that is so awesome. And again, I cannot believe I have not been on that portion. I've been on a lot of mountain portion of the trail, but basically from Stone Mountain State Park east, I have not been on the trail. So Mary, I'm coming to your house. I'm just
you definitely should get when COVID's over. You can come.
Yeah. Okay. So, okay. If I go by now, I'm just going to wave. Okay.
That's right. I'll bring you some supplies to the trail.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit. I mean, I'm not seeing this pandemic over by the time this episode comes out. So let's talk about how COVID not only has affected you as a trail angel, because I imagine, I mean, it's scary. You may not want to be providing that service right now. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's really put a kink in things, because there have been some people out hiking the Mountains to Sea Trail now, and they just don't have trail angel support. So nobody has called me to bring them anything to the trail, which I would be happy to do, but not been able to shuttle people, been able to house people. And as far as my hiking, it's put a kink in that too, because I had started sectioning the AT and am not able to shuttle. So I put that on hold for a little bit, but basically figuring out how to shuttle yourself. So you either end up doing an in and out hike, or you can stage a bike shuttle and do it that way. And not being able to hike as freely with friends.
Yeah, that's totally been tough. And even hiking with friends, and I know you have a network, and your network is growing. And I actually found out this morning before we started recording, we have a mutual friend that I hiked with on the AT, and I'm really scared of the stories that she told you, quite honestly. I mean, and I had forgotten that she lived in that area, and how coincidentally that you guys, I think that's awesome. So, and her trail name is Kansas, but, and as soon as you said you knew her, I was like, oh my God, what did she tell Mary? Is she still going to do this interview? So that just proves right there, the hiking world is a small community.
Absolutely. Yeah. And actually the trail brought us together as well. So.
And that's awesome. So hopefully this COVID-19 pandemic stuff will work itself out. And you did mention that you started section hiking the AT. So how many miles do you have complete on the Appalachian Trail now?
I've done 254. I have given myself a lot longer time frame to do this, because when I was doing the Mountains to Sea Trail, that was basically all that I was committed to. But I've got other things on the agenda besides just the Appalachian Trail. So I've given myself 10 years, and I was hoping to do 200 miles a year. And last year I got in 254. So I was a little bit ahead of schedule.
Well, Mary, by now we all know your personality. I mean, come on now. We know you're going to do more than And now you're building your Appalachian Trail network around you. So we're going to call you and go, come on, Mary, what's happening? And we're going to hold each other accountable, for finishing these other trails. You need to hold me accountable for the Mountains to Sea Trail, and I'll hold you accountable, and Kansas can hold you accountable for the AT as well.
Absolutely. So. Yeah. And you really should get down to the eastern part, because all of segment 10 is in the woods, and Falls Lake is just beautiful. And people are surprised when they get down here how much rolling hills there is. They think when they get to the Piedmont, everything's going to be flat, but a lot of segment 10 is up and down, up and down. I mean, not like in the mountains, but it's rolling hills. Right.
And a lot of times those kind of segments or sections, they kick my butt. Yeah. Because it is, you don't have, that continual climb and then, down for 3 miles. It's like, oh my goodness, here we go again.
Up and down.
Up and down. So no, I am actually excited. I'm really looking forward to, I am going to commit to section hiking the Mountains to Sea Trail. I don't know about a time frame, Mary, but I know the way that I am. Once I start something, I'm not going to stop until I can get it done. And I'm in the state, so I have no excuse whatsoever.
Absolutely.
So, and you and I are going to meet, and I will. I will utilize your Trail Angel services, and hopefully this COVID-19, I don't know what's going to happen with COVID-19, but hopefully it'll all start working itself out. But Mary, oh my goodness, I cannot thank you enough for coming on the podcast and sharing about the awesome Mountains to Sea Trail. I think we've come to a good point now where Mary is going to sign off for us by reading her own journal entry, statement, or quote that's going to inspire us all to keep hiking section by section.
Thank you so much for having me, Julie. It's been great to talk to you and look forward to meeting you and seeing you on the trail. I actually have 2 quotes that I'd like to read. The first one is from Mark Twain. 20 years from now, you will be more disappointed by the things you didn't do than by the ones you did do. So throw off the bowlines, sail away from the safe harbor, catch the trade winds in your sails, explore, dream, discover. And then the second one is from Bilbo Baggins, The Lord of the Rings, Return of the King. I think I'm quite ready for another adventure.
Perfect. Mary, thank you again. I really appreciate it. And happy section hiking.
Thank you. Happy trails to you as well.
Thanks, Mary, for sharing with us about the town of Elkin, Priddy's General Store, and knowing the tide tables if we head out to the coast of North Carolina for some hiking. And a huge congrats for being Mountains to Sea Trail completer number 96. I am excited about starting my own section hiking of the Mountains to Sea Trail in the coming months, or maybe even sooner. Before I end today's show, I wanted to ask you all for some help. I am really enjoying putting together 3-part episodes featuring a particular section hiker or long-distance trail. If any of you know someone that you think has a unique story and would be a great guest for a 3-part series, please reach out and let me know. Send me an email to jesternc2212@gmail.com. As always, thanks for listening and happy section hiking.
I'm wondering if you'd go wandering with me through the wilderness and woods to where the winds are blowing free, through the darkness of the night, heading toward the morning light. I wonder if you'd wander with me, and I'll spread the word and you beat the drum. We'll round up the troops and get the gang to come, and we'll leave the streets and these neighborhoods, head over the river and through the woods. You're wondering if I go wandering with you, what kind of trouble we'll get ourselves into. Would it be wrong to tag along with a band of vagabonds? You wonder if I'd wander with you. So I'll spread the word and you beat the drum. We'll round up the troops and get the gang to come, and we'll leave the streets and these neighborhoods, head over the river. I'm wondering if you'd come wandering my way, if you ever get lost or if the trail leads you astray. The music of the pack can always bring you back. I wonder, can we wander away? And I'll spread the word and you beat the drum. We'll round up the troops and get the gang to come, and we'll leave the streets and these neighborhoods, head over the river.
Looking for a fun way to win up to 25 times your money this football season? Test your skills on Prize Picks, the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projection for a wide variety of statistics, and place your entry. It's as easy as that. If you have the skills, you can turn $10 into $250 with just a few taps. Easy gameplay, quick withdrawals, and an enormous selection of players and stat options are what make Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. Ready to test your skills? Join the Prize Picks community of more than 7 million football fans who have already signed up. Right now, Prize Picks will match your first deposit up to $100. Just visit prizepicks.com/get100 and use code GET100. That's code GET100 at prizepicks.com/get100 for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy.